the National Director for Miss Universe Nigeria, Guy Murray Bruce. I'm delighted to have you join me on the show today.
Thanks for having me on the set. She's only a victim because she has a Nigerian father and South African mother. She is South African. Her mother is South African.
Wow.
I don't know if it was cooked up. I have no idea. But she tells me the mother is South African. They dropped that case. But as of 2 days ago, I was told
that they dropped the case?
They've investigated and the mother is South African.
Great.
I think it's a case of she was going so well in the pageant. They wanted to get her out and use any opportunity to get her out. That's how I see it.
But now looking at it on the basis of you've spoken to her 2 days ago and she says that case has been dropped.
That's what I was told.
We can go back to the conversation.
I don't have anything on paper, but I was told that.
Did you speak to her mum?
No, spoke to her personally.
But is she in touch with her mother?
Yes, she is, and her father.
And her father?
Yeah.
And they are...
And they live in South Africa. He's a Nigerian because of her father. And he's from Enugu State.
Okay.
They live in South Africa. And she's 23 years old. Last time she was in Nigeria was when she was 3 years old. And yes, but she has roots in Nigeria. She has family in Enugu. She has family in Lagos. Her mother's family is in South Africa. I don't know beyond that. I just feel she was victimized because her only crime is being half Nigerian and half South African, if you ask me. And that's where the xenophobia comes in. We're all mixed somehow. We're all mixed in Africa somehow. Why do we want to practice that there in South Africa?
Hi everyone, welcome to Amagana Observer. So this guy, and that's his name, Guy Murray Bruce, had a lot to say about South Africa and South Africans. Admittedly, it was based on information he was receiving from Chidimma, but he claimed the case of ID theft had been dropped. Obviously, this was from a couple of months ago in August, I think, before the Nigerian pageant took place. However, has the case been dropped or is the investigation still going on?
The cases that you're dealing with, particularly of fraud, we had raised this question to the minister regarding Chidimma Adetshina's mother having obtained her identification in South Africa fraudulently. I just want to get a sense from you, because when we asked the minister this question, in his reply, he had indicated that travel, particularly her ability to have traveled to Nigeria for that contest, the minister said that case was under investigation. Can you just can we get an update on the status of the initial investigation that was mentioned to the portfolio committee, and also what is the current status of the investigation into the mother's travel to Nigeria, and also where are the both of them, Chidimma and her mom, at the current moment? Thank you.
We are working with them on the matter that you have raised, Honorable Ngobeni, with regards to Adetshina and the mom. So that matter is currently with the DPCI. They've concluded that investigation according to General Libya. They are now waiting for the NPA to advise them on the next steps. From our side, we've handed over the file. We've completed the work which was done by Counter-Corruption and Security Services. That work is done. We've actually written to both Adetshina and the mom and indicated, I think the last day was yesterday, and they need to give us reasons as to why those documents should not be withdrawn. As of yesterday, we have not received any response, and therefore the department will be proceeding with the withdrawal of those documents in line with the Identification Act.
The staggering rot in home affairs, from illegal visas to facilitating fake marriages. Hello, I'm Jane Dutton. But first to this. Identity and travel documents of former Miss South Africa contestant Chidimma Adetshina and her Mozambican-born mother are being cancelled. The Home Affairs Department says they are also facing probable fraud charges. Adeshina's case reached Parliament in August when the public questioned her heritage and nationality after she became a finalist in the Miss South Africa pageant. She travelled with her mum to Nigeria last month, where she won the Miss Universe Nigeria pageant.
So it's clear that the case is still ongoing. Not only are their citizenships being revoked, their travel documents are also being cancelled. They might be prosecuted for fraud in stealing other people's identities. But I wanted to focus on the fact that when some Nigerians or most Nigerians are talking about this case, they usually gloss over the fact that there was identity theft and ID fraud involved in this whole case. You know, they kind of gloss over it that it's xenophobia or jealousy. But no, there was more to the situation. And if you go back, this whole thing started from when she was a runner-up and she was celebrating with her family, her Nigerian family. And there was no indication that she was repping South Africa. And who can blame them? It's almost like someone is going to represent, let me take Ghana because that's where I'm from. And you don't see a Ghanaian flag anywhere. You see the other nation's flag. And we know how they'll rub your noses in it. You know, so there were so many factors. But again, my focus on this is why most or some Nigerians seem to just gloss over the fact that there was ID theft. Because that is the major issue in this situation. You know, things led up to the fact of that discovery. But from the very beginning, there was fraud involved. So let's take a look at how that type of fraud affects people.
Now we're looking to speak to a victim of identity theft. Lulama Ntentesa joins us just to tell us a bit more about her specific ordeal as somebody who was a victim of identity theft. Good afternoon, Lulama. Thank you very much for joining us on The Full View. You are most certainly one victim of identity theft. Some people might think it's a simple issue that you can resolve by presenting your ID and then all is back to normal. But it really can be a costly exercise, a very traumatic exercise that can deny you the ability to enjoy certain rights as a citizen. Just take us through your story. Well,
thank you everyone for having me on the show. Basically, it was in 2013 and around June, I decided to download credit report that we get for free. And when I did that, I discovered that as early, maybe around 2012, someone had stolen my identity. They had actually gotten an ID that was issued in 2005. My first ID, which was the Green Book, was issued to me in 1999. So I never have lost that ID. I still have it, despite the fact that I've since gotten a digital card. So it was a shock to me that the report said that I had opened a cell phone account from a certain company and I had taken up 2 contracts, and there were a whole lot of credit applications that were under my name. And worse off, it said that I now lived in Kroonstad. I'd never been or lived outside of Durban my whole life at the time. Around June, I discovered that when I downloaded the credit report from the Credit Bureau, I discovered a whole lot of accounts that I had not opened or applied for. And some of those accounts were from a particular retailer that sells cell phones. And I had 2 cell phones under my name that I was not aware of. So I contacted those companies directly, and I contacted that company, and they started to send me the whole contract that I had supposedly signed. And that contract also had attached to it were pay slips as well as a fake ID that had a face that's not mine. And when I queried this, they said definitely it was me. Then I started to send them details because it said I opened a contract in Kroonstad. At the time, I had never left Durban, which is where I was born and raised and worked. And so my whole life at the time. And so it was a shock to me that I now worked and lived in Kroonstad. And when I looked at the contract, it even had a bank statement from one of the banks that I banked with. And I looked at the account, it wasn't my account. And I also contacted that bank. That bank said, oh, wait a minute, this is not your account. It's not in your name. But according to that fake statement, it was my bank account. So
how did this ordeal affect you? Pardon me for interjecting there. How did this ordeal affect you emotionally, psychologically, and even just your credit itself or your ability to actually attain certain things on credit?
It was a traumatic time because what it does is it disrupts your life. You have to now prove that you are you, that you didn't do this crime of getting credits and getting these items that never were delivered to you. You have to go to the police. You have to open a case. You have to follow up on the case. You have to now dispute each and every one of those items that are listed on the credit bureau. And further to that, your credit record gets affected, which means that your credit score will be lower, which means that when you do need to use credit, you are unable to use credit, you will be affected because you even get higher interest rates because you are such a bad payer, because you accounts you did not pay for that you are not even aware of. I mean, some people have accounts that they were not aware of that were opened 4 years ago that they never paid for. And so therefore that taints your name. And further to that, for my own career, I've progressed career-wise, but that affects your career if you want to be in management roles because you are a bad payer, you have financial problems that you are not even aware of because it's on your credit list. When they do checkups on you, it's not just...
And they don't give you an opportunity, I suppose. In certain instances, they would do that credit check without you and then perhaps take a decision without bringing you into the room to ask you, why exactly do you seem as though you're an exposed individual?
Absolutely. It really, it's not just, I'm sorry, it has risen because of a particular case that involves Miss South Africa. It's not just lying about your identity it affects lives, other people's lives, not just one person.
What's individual court though? And how easy or difficult is it for the police to deal with such cases?
Well, I can speak for my case. I had a police officer that looked into it. So my case, I registered it in Durban in CR Swart, the station there. They passed it on to Johannesburg. Johannesburg passed it on to Kroonstad. Kroonstad then started calling me. So you can imagine how many months that must have been. And when the investigating officer told me that, okay, I'm going to look into it. Then he looked into it. Months, if not even a year or two later, I came back and said that looking at his investigations, this person has stopped using my identity and therefore, and they could not find this person. So then the case is dropped.
Thank you very much, Lulama, for joining us and sharing your ordeal. That was identity theft victim Lulama Ntentesa speaking to us.
So this is an ordeal indeed for the victim. Chidimma's ID would have belonged to a child who would lose out on their benefits. Why aren't we talking about that? It's always, Nigerians always want to play the victim. If they are not being bullies, again, not all of you, let me say some, if you are not being bullies, pushing people around, you want to be victim. Why aren't we talking about the victims, the real victims?
My guest, Somi Maduagu, a lawyer and herself within the pageant industry as a pageant queen, as a coach for a lot of young girls getting in, joins me right now. Somi, it's great to have you on Arise 360. Again, actually, but I think this time in a slightly different capacity. So I want to get your take on this. You know, everyone's talking about race, everyone's talking about ethnicity. And again, this is a conversation that you really cannot argue. I would always say, especially as it pertains to xenophobia, as it pertains to racism, when a person believes in these two things, it's a waste of time and a waste of breath trying to convince them otherwise.
The whole debacle, honestly, is quite alarming, but I will say not so surprising. just because we're aware of the xenophobic, traits of the people that we're talking about. In pageantry, there's something that we call kind of crossover queens. So, for example, like me, I have dual citizenship as well. I'm British and I'm also Nigerian. And even though I identify more with my Nigerian side, if I wanted to compete for Miss Universe Great Britain, I would have every right to do so. I did a little bit of research before coming here, and I realized that to be South African, there are a number of things that qualify you for being South African, like being born there and just a bunch of other things that you would qualify you for South African citizenship.
She is South African as well as she is Nigerian. I am Nigerian Canadian. The Canadians would never discriminate against me if I wanted to compete for Miss Universe Canada because I'm Nigerian. Because they understand that we're all multicultural.
These two exemplify some of those Nigerians who don't know what they're talking about. According to South Africans, one of your parents have to be from there before you can be a citizen. Being born there does not make you a South African. Unlike those countries you're living in, the UK, US for sure I know, Canada, is by birth. But that's not what happens in most African countries. One of your parents has to be from there. So the fact that you're born in that country does not make you a citizen. Because I see that being repeated all the time. She was born there or she's lived there, so she's a citizen. No, it does not make you a citizen. And I think that even applies to Nigerians. So it is what it is. Folks, I'm going to end it here. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you again for those who continue to subscribe, those who keep returning, those who comment. Thank you for helping my channel grow. I really appreciate you all, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.